Do not buy this if you're a beginner. Do not buy this if you're an intermediate. I was looking at MSRPs. I was seeing this on the internet for like $300, $299 US. In terms of just raw repulsion, you really have to like peek to get it where you want it to go. The axforce 100 review from Leaning. So again, guys, so this is from Leaning's head heavy stiff line, basically Leaning's answer to the Yonex Astrox lineup. So I will be comparing this directly with, of course, the Yonex 100ZZ. This came out, I just looked it up, April 10, 2023. So it's been out for a little while now, over a year, but it still remains Leaning's flagship in the axforce lineup. They, of course, have a bunch of other lineups I won't talk too much about, as I am not as familiar with Leaning products and rackets as I am with Yonex. But I can talk about this racket, and that's what we are going to do today. This is, for me, an inferior version of the 100ZZ. The Leaning fanboys, I already know, are going to be chatting in the comments why I'm an idiot or why I'm a moron, but let's talk about why I feel like the 100ZZ is the better racket. But before that, let's talk about the specs of this. So again, head heavy. I couldn't find the balance point anywhere, but I would say this is probably like $295. It doesn't really feel like super sledgehammer-like. There is a good bit of maneuverability in the head. Of course, that might be the aerodynamics because of the fully recessed frame. This is a slightly smaller head, not really like the maximum size I've seen before, but not really as compact either. What I mean by that is, like, if you compare it with the 100ZZ, they are both compact shapes. They both have the same handles, which are very long. These are considered long handles, and that also means short shafts, which affects the playability of rackets in a certain way, which we'll talk about later. But as you can see, the 100ZZ is still just a little bit more compact than the axforce 100, but also the frame shapes are different entirely as well. Yonex has, of course, their isometric shape, and so it is a bit wider on the sides, meaning a larger sweet spot, while Leaning prefers to have kind of more of like a narrow frame, if you will. So it's not as wide out here on the sides, it's a bit more tall, if that makes sense, but it will have more punch. So it's always, right, trade-off between accessibility and usability or maximum performance. In terms of shaft slimness, they are both around 6.0. This says on the shaft itself, it literally just says Power Shaft 6.0, and this feels around 6.0. They both have their own versions of boost caps, but besides that, that's really where the comparisons end, in my opinion. So let's talk about this just by itself first. What is this designed to be? So this was designed to be a professional grade head-heavy attacking racket. The only player I can recall using this is Anthony Ginting, the men's singles player from Indonesia, but I'm sure other pro players were using it. I just couldn't find any. I find the power on this to be very, very good. I think it actually edges out the 100ZZ in terms of just raw performance, but in terms of accessibility and usability, the 100ZZ is definitely easier to use. That being said, they are both very stable attackers, meaning it's very easy to consistently smash over and over again with both the Leaning axforce 100 and the 100ZZ. Granted that you have the physicality and the technique to use it. This is by any means not, I repeat, this is not a beginner racket. This is not even an intermediate racket. Right? This is an advanced racket. You have to know what you're doing. Please do not buy this if you like just started and you think it's pretty and then you're going to string it to 30 pounds and then you're going to be like, why can't I smash with this racket, right? This is a hard racket to use for sure. But that being said though, because the power ceiling is so high, if you can reach anywhere near the power ceiling, the smash is very, very good. It is a little bit stronger than 100ZZ, I feel. In terms of handling, of course, it's not bad. It is a head-heavy racket, right? But it does a lot to counteract the fact that it's heavy in the head. Fully recessed frame means the aerodynamics in the swing are good. The slim shaft also means aerodynamics are good, and it's not too terribly head heavy, as I said, so it's not like you're moving around like an 88D Pro in your hand, right? Yonex, just their rotational generation system in the Astrox lineup just does wonders when it comes to handling though. So like when you're doing overhead swings, I think this and the 100ZZ feel almost identical, but when you're playing mid-court, when you're playing lifts, when you're playing net shots, I feel the 100ZZ is a bit better in almost every aspect when it comes to that sense. Repulsion doesn't really have any. The drives are crisp, yes, because this is a stiff shaft, but in terms of just raw repulsion, you really have to like peek to get it where you want it to go. But because the shaft is so stiff, if you can overcome that stiff shaft, the placement very good. Very easy to place these back in the back corners, very easy to lift them into the back corners, right? Very easy to drive in those back left and back right boxes in doubles as well. Again, would prefer the 100ZZ. Repulsion, right, because there is no lack of repulsion, control was a bit different, like when it comes to drops, right? So again, guys, I'm coming from the 1000Z, the Nanoflare 1000Z, the most repulsive racket on the market at this point. So I'm very used to having very small actions when it comes to drop, because that's all you need to get the pace over there. Coming back to this, or moving or switching to this for a little while, I'm just reminded of how abnormally repulsive the 1000Z is. This is probably what was considered a normal amount of repulsion for a racket before the Nano Flare came out, and it's just like the drops was so hard to do. It took a bit of adjusting to get used to. Even now, I'm still not as confident, or my drop quality is not as good as if I were using the 1000Z. It really isn't, right? It just feels for me unnatural to place with so much force. Even the mid-court shots are not there, especially like my forehand drive. So verdict for the axforce 100, I wanted to say 100ZZ right there, is like basically get the 100ZZ. I think the only reason why you would want to get this over the 100ZZ is if all you're looking for is something that's fast and can hit hard. I think this is it, right? Because very stiff, very slim. If you're okay with giving up a little bit of performance in the drives, if you're okay with being a little bit slower maneuverability in the front court, and you want more stiffness, just a harder hitting feel, just a more higher end racket feel, so this is going to be right. It's going to be harder on your shoulder and your arm, but the maximum power ceiling will be higher a little bit. Then definitely go for this. I think for the overwhelming majority of people, 100ZZ is the better option. Extremely versatile. It still is to this day. Like the 100ZZ has been out for years at this point, right? And still very many top players are using this. It's just so versatile for singles, for doubles, for front court, for back court, for mid court. There really is not much wrong with the 100ZZ. If you're wanting to specialize a little bit though, let's say you are a backcourt player, let's say you are a singles player, and that's all you do, I would pick the axforce 100. If you kind of want something that's all over the place, or all-rounder, I guess, I would stick with 100ZZ. Another downside is like this is very expensive. I think this is the most expensive racket on the market. I was looking at MSRPs. I was seeing this on the internet for like $300, $299 US, sometimes on sale for $260. So even more expensive than Yonex's Z rackets when they first came out. I don't really know about racket prices now because living in the Philippines, not having bought a racket in a long time. I don't know what MSRPs are like, but just a quick Google search showed me like this is very, very premium and very expensive. You're obviously not, this is not a value pick. You're buying this because you want the best of leaning, which of course comes with like the decals, the paint job, right? It is pretty, right? Leaning makes the best paint jobs in badminton for sure. They are just clean, they are tasteful, they are aesthetic. I don't really want to get into specs and all that because anyone can read about like, you know, hitting feel. So again, 100ZZ wins. Solid core. If you have not tried solid core, which means if you have not tried the 100ZZ, you will not know what I mean by solid core. But solid core is like the best thing Yonex has made. I don't know why they are not putting in more rackets, but solid core is such a wonderful hitting feel. It's strangely so different from everything else on the market because everything else on the market is hollow. So the hitting feel, the characteristics of the shaft are so different. This can feel quite thin, quite hollow at some times, even if you're hitting it square on the sweet spot. There are some times I notice where it's like, why is this like not giving me the feedback? And maybe this is like a design thing from leaning. Maybe leaning like does their vibration dampening different than Yonex, right? And this is more meta stuff, right? Maybe leaning, you know, wants their rackets to have more vibration or less vibration. I don't like the hitting feeling of this as much. It's not as confidence inspiring, or it's not as comfortable as Yonex. But again, this might just be like personal preference. I've grown up using Yonex rackets, so I'm kind of used to the design language that Yonex has, right? But it is something to, I guess, take note of, I guess. But yeah, that's really all I want to say about this. So again, to recap, very unfriendly racket. Do not buy this if you're a beginner. Do not buy this if you're an intermediate. Please be very sure if you buy this. I'm not saying this is a bad racket, right? I'm just saying this is a very hard racket to use. Very thin, very unforgiving, very small sweet spot, very thin shaft. But if you do, and if you can use this, you will get a lot of power out of it. It's not as maneuverable as the 100ZZ, but it is still very maneuverable for a head-heavy racket. Totally fine for doubles, I would say. Of course, very good for singles as well. If you're looking for something, you know, high end, and you truly, like if you look in the mirror and you truly can wield such a stiff and head heavy racket, then this is a good option. I wouldn't say it's the best option. Again, I said my vote still remains for the 100ZZ just because of the handling and the slight more versatility that 100ZZ provides. But right, if you're okay with giving up a little bit versatility for a bit more power and you want the stiffness in your drives for that crisp placement, then 100ZZ might be it, especially if you have money. No giveaway. Again, I have to return this to my friend, so shout out to Mark for letting me review this and spending time with it for like last week or so. Let me know what you guys would like me to review next. Just comment down below and I will do my best. Bye bye.